Hello everyone, great to have you here on the channel. MeteoMark Weather, welcome. We're going to be looking at the tropics, most likely a tropical storm forming around Florida and the southeast coast. And could this make a run up the U.S. East Coast? We're going to explore all the details. The rest of your tropics becoming much more active. Could this traditionally quiet July pattern for the tropics actually be a more active July this year? And major hurricanes after major hurricane continues off the eastern Pacific Mexican coastline. And could we be looking at a super typhoon here into the western Pacific just south of Japan over the next couple weeks? And we'll also take a look at your long July 4th weekend, see what the weather holds here for Eastern North America. Let's get into it. And here we go. All eyes are going to be on our satellite loop here. Look at this. This is starting to look like a circulation. Lots of deep tropical moisture on the northwest side of this. But I think in time, as this pinwheels more towards Florida, it's going to get a bit more symmetrical. All right, so the first thing here in the tropics we're going to look at is in the eastern Gulf here. This system is going to continue to slowly pinwheel towards the east as we head on into Wednesday and on into the day on Thursday. Obviously, you can see what this is. This is really picking up as the tail end of a frontal boundary, and conditions, I think, will become much more favorable as we head on through the weekend here. Look at that. Lots of rain for Florida. That is just going to continue as we go through the 5th into the 6th, so as we head on later on into the weekend here. GFS still bringing it further westward. I'll show you the European model in just a couple minutes here. But you can see we got two waves, one across Florida, one across South Carolina here. And as we head through early next week, you can see it kind of camping out here off of the Carolinas. So initially, this wants to hug the coast a little bit more. However, as you can see, this response to this high pressure to the east building a little bit further to the west, and we got this trough up here into the northeast. Look what's going to be happening. So you got this high pressure, and you got this trough kicking in. So the timing is everything on these. And I'll show you what the European does momentarily, but here's what the GFS does. It kind of camps it out here off the coast of eastern North Carolina, bringing lots of rain. But you can see waves of it pinwheeling to the north. So I think it's pretty well certain we're going to see some deep tropical moisture flowing northward here next week, especially the middle of next week. And then that kind of heads off like a conveyor belt here towards Nova Scotia and then Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland here. So looking pretty interesting. And look at that. It kind of just hangs out, continues with some showers and thunderstorm action off the North Carolina coast. Now, if we just back it up across the rest of the Atlantic here, yeah, things look quiet to start out across the Caribbean here. We're going to be looking at the possibility that we could see a few showers across the Lesser Antilles, Nicaragua, Honduras, through the 4th here into the 5th. You see you get these little flare-ups. We go throughout the rest of the Atlantic here. Here's the intertropical convergence zone, still pretty far to the south here of the Cape Verde Islands, but that's going to bounce to the north slowly here, more so on the European model, which I'll show you. However, here is that mid and higher level, low-level dust kind of kicking in here. You can see where there's pretty much no development going on. Now, watch this. As we go through the 9th into the 10th, GFS keeping things pretty quiet for the most part across the eastern Caribbean. We do have this tropical wave moving across Nicaragua and Honduras. One thing to note, it doesn't seem very active across Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. So I know things have been pretty hot as of late, and you could use some rainfall. Unfortunately, it looks like this tropical wave moving through Honduras and Belize through the 9th into the 10th here with some gusty winds and some heavy rain. Now look at this. As we stretch on into the 11th, into the 12th, one thing you're going to notice is, yeah, we have this area out here, another tail end of the front. We're going to be watching this area once again as we have a complex of thunderstorms moving off the Florida coast. And out here by the Cape Verde Islands, you can see this is slowly pinwheeling to the north, and we can go right out across Central Africa here. Look at this. We're just going to start lining these up. Look at how crazy this is. These are some pretty strong tropical waves for this time of year, and they're going to exit off the coast. You see the last frame there. There's a big one here just southeast of the Cape Verde Islands. Now, this is the July 15th. We got another strong tropical wave just north of Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua here. But look at that. GFS model keeping things pretty dry here across much of the northern Caribbean islands, even over to Cancun and Belize and Honduras by this point, the middle of the month, looking pretty dry. Now watch this. See this tail end of the front? This is showing up much better on the European model. Let's take a look. Now there is something I want to show you just briefly before we flip over to the Euro. It just caught my eye. Right around the 11th into the 12th, are you starting to see this tail end of a frontal boundary as this high pressure moves east? We may have something trying to form off the Florida coastline again. Here it is on the 14th into the 15th. We may actually have another tropical system. Now for the Euro. All right, so let's get a look here at the European run. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits here. We put this into motion. All eyes are going to be on the Eastern Gulf and Southeast coast here, Florida in particular. This is the area. Now, you're going to get some flare-ups of some showers from time to time. We got a wave out here. Also, another one southeast of Trinidad, Tobago. We'll continue to watch this one because this one looks pretty hefty, southeast of the Lesser Antilles here. That is going to be moving towards the west-northwest in time, bringing you some scattered showers and thunder showers through Friday here. Now, look at as this system crosses Florida. Here is the area of low pressure trying to initialize over Florida here. You see it on the European model. It looks very healthy by this point, Saturday morning. And also, we're looking into the Eastern Caribbean with our strong tropical wave here. So, we got a few areas. You can see the tail end of the frontal boundary. That's where you get the spin-ups this time of year. Look at on the European. There's no doubt by this point it's a tropical storm. And it starts to move and hug up the coastline here, just as I showed you on the GFS. Here it is continuing to slowly pivot towards the north here, and it's going to get entrained into that area of low pressure. So there it is on the 11th. One thing we got to note, there's going to be more surges of moisture here with a tropical wave here around July 12th. And here we go through. Let me just back this up a second. You can see through Jamaica right around the 7th into the 8th. We get some flare up here with this tropical wave through the Yucatan, maybe a few spritzels through Cancun as well. Now, we have another system July 10th moving through the southern Lesser Antilles. During this time, though, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic through Jamaica mostly look dry as we head towards the middle of the month. But here we go. Right around the 13th, we get another tail end of a front, thunderstorm complex. We'll be watching the possibility of another spin up here, maybe another tropical system trying to form here in the Eastern Gulf. And then look at this system. The intertropical convergence zone starts to really bounce to the north as this high pressure pulls to the north. It's going to bring some of these systems a little bit further here to the north than where they have been. And this is one we're going to have to watch in particular. The European going crazy with it here. Look at that. This is going to be that first surge of big, look at this. European is wanting to develop this into potentially something by the 16th into the 17th. It moves between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic here. And look at this. We're still watching off the southeast coastline here and Eastern Gulf. So these storm systems are going to be coming north over the next couple weeks. All right, so let's take a look at the rest of the tropics here. The MDR, I wanted to show you this because this gives us a big picture of the Cape Verde Islands. Here they are, right out here. There's the coast of Africa. So as we put this into motion, look at this. There is some strong tropical wave action out here all the way through July 10th. There's another one right around the 11th into the 12th. And that one is the one we're following with the European model. Here it is. These start to come ever so slightly to the north. Here's another one back and through here. There's an area of low pressure trying to initiate around Florida with another potential tropical system. So I really think July is typically very quiet across the Atlantic, but I have a feeling this July is going to be different. Sea surface temperature analysis here. Look at off the East Coast here. It is totally on fire here. That's why I think the system moving across Florida has the potential to definitely become something off the East Coast here. The northern Central Gulf running high as well. One thing you're going to note, though, look at through the Caribbean and the Cape Verde Island and an MDR. It's cool. And the reason of this is that it's been persistent Saharan dust along with some systems causing upwelling. So I do expect this dust to continue to slowly thin, though, over the next couple weeks to a month. All right, so the European run here of the Caribbean. Yeah, Central America, you're getting a little bit of a break here. Jamaica, by the weekend, you may see a few scattered showers and thunder showers. That's some good news because I know it's been so hot and dry. And then as we get towards the second week and through mid-part, we do start to moisten things up around Belize here, upwards of 150 millimeters along the coast here. Honduras, right around 125. Look at Jamaica here. 20 to as much as 50 millimeters, especially the eastern tip. Look at this. Some areas around Portland Parish may see upwards of 80 millimeters. Also the western part as well. Haiti and Dominican Republic, right around 40 to 50 millimeters on average here. And if we take a look at the Western Caribbean here, if we put this into motion with the GFS, yeah, it starts out dry. Even Cancun, barely a drop of rain. Jamaica as well. A little bit back towards Dominican Republic here, but watch this as we surge towards the middle of the month. Cuba's getting a lot here. So is western part of Dominican Republic, upwards of 200 millimeters. But most areas getting around 20 to 40. Jamaica, it's going to be interesting. The west and east part of the island here getting more as we head on into that second week of July. But most areas not getting more than 40 millimeters. And then Belize, look at this. 100 to 200 millimeters. Same for northeastern Honduras here. Cancun, you're eking out about 10 millimeters on average. And here we go. I wanted to show you tropical moisture because this is Florida. Look what is coming our way here with this tropical disturbance. Anywhere from 4, 5, maybe some areas over 6 or 7 inches here. Tampa all the way over to the East Coast here down to Miami. And the Northern Keys here, Fort Myers, all these areas, the Everglades. Yeah, it's going to be a wet time of it over the next week or so. And here we go with our Florida rains with this potential tropical system. This takes us through the 13th. Look at this. Tampa, 8.5 inches, close to 9 inches. And northern parts just north of Miami here could see upwards of 6 inches. So we're looking at widespread 2 to 5 inches. Locally higher. The GFS has higher totals up here towards the Panhandle, though, up towards Savannah, Georgia as well, and then kind of bringing it along the Carolinas here, upwards of 4 to 6 inches. All right, so we're taking a look at the Eastern Caribbean here. Some scattered showers moving through with a couple waves. Now watch the weekend into next week. Yeah, we get one wave that moves through Trinidad, Tobago, all the way up through the Central Lesser Antilles. Puerto Rico is not looking too wet here. We have to wait until, let's see here, the middle of the month. Look at this surge of moisture. This is where we're going to really start to see some tropical wave action. Trinidad, Tobago, all the way up the island chain, anywhere about 60 to 100 millimeters. Virgin Islands, you're looking at about 20 to 40 on average. In Puerto Rico, about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch, but the eastern tip of the island could see upwards of 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And here we go for the Eastern Caribbean. Yeah, we got that first wave moving through, a second wave as we head on into the weekend. And we're going to surge these waves as we head towards the middle of the month. Look at parts of Puerto Rico up to 3/4 to 1 inch. Dominican Republic. There you have it. Very isolated amounts, but the Lesser Antilles, Trinidad, Tobago, all the way up to the Southern Virgin Islands, you could be looking upwards of 60 to 100 millimeters. Eastern Pacific, major hurricane Flossie here, 966 millibars. Well, it's not a major hurricane, but it's about to become a major hurricane. As it continues to strengthen here, you can see just moving parallel to the Mexican coast. The good news is this is mainly a fish storm. The outer feeder bands are going to affect areas from Colima, Puerto Vallarta here, all the way up to Cabo San Lucas. So watch out. Some of the outer spiral bands will affect, and then this heads into colder water. You can see, though, the moisture on the east side, though, heading right up through central Mexico, the mountainous terrain. So watch out for that. Some flooding potential. And then look at right behind it, we're looking at another potential for another hurricane as we head through July 6th, 7th, and 8th here. That one also proving to be a fish storm, but this is kind of crazy if you think about it. We are racking up some record levels of storminess here into the Eastern Pacific. All right, so the Western Pacific here. Yeah, you got some rain up here in North Korea, eventually bringing into Seoul, South Korea here through your Wednesday into Thursday. But look at that, for the most part, it's clear. All the way down to Shanghai. Tokyo has a few showers, but look at that. Yeah, South Korea, looking really nice here over to Tokyo, Seoul, Shanghai. These areas looking nice. Now, one thing we're going to be watching is our next tropical storm here. It's a tropical depression, likely to become our fourth storm here. Look at this. As this rounds the bend, it's going to stay pretty much away from Japan here with this frontal boundary bringing it up to the north like this. However, I caution you because this run of the model has this storm moving much quicker and it starts to bend towards the Japanese coastline here. Look at this. Bringing it up towards Sendai. So well northeast of Tokyo here by July 7th. We could have a landfalling storm despite the storm track here. Now, look at this big monster behind it. This kind of comes out of nowhere. Think this is going to develop in the next couple days pretty rapidly on the North Philippine coastline here. Move just east of Taiwan. You can see all the way up through. Look how clear it is. You know, it's the rainy season up through Japan and South Korea and Shanghai here, but it doesn't look like it. Look at that. Clear as a bell there. What's going to happen? This could become a major super typhoon here. This is through July 8th. Here's our last frame. I wanted to show you. Look at this thing. It is just crowding the southern Japanese islands here, and it doesn't seem to have any major steering currents. All right, so looking at our future radar here, the big story is going to continue to be our potential tropical system here that's going to be slowly pinwheeling towards the west coast of Florida as we head through Wednesday morning here. So we're almost to the 4th of July. So here we go. 3 p.m. Look at these showers and thunderstorms moving across central and south Florida. You can see also as this front moves through. This is what this is. This is a front, and this is the tail end of it right here. And this time of year, you always can get these kind of spin-ups. Look what's going on up here by the Outer Banks, though. Let me just back this up. By 11 a.m., look what's starting to conglomerate across Richmond, Raleigh, towards Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, and eventually towards the Outer Banks through 5, 6, 7 p.m. These are going to be some very heavy rains here with these thunderstorms. You know, some of them could be severe as well, but the heavy rain's going to be the big story as we head overnight into the early morning hours of Thursday. That moves off the Carolinas here. Look what's moving into Tampa. Cape Coral here down to Fort Myers, Naples. Yeah, lots of heavy rain. And this is the last frame here. This is 2 p.m. on July 3rd. So we're going to be watching this thing over the next 7, 8, 9 days here. It's going to slowly chug its way across Florida. You see some showers and thunder showers back through Texas as well. This is kind of that same boundary. So we'll have to watch back through here within time too. Now, look what happens up here in the Northeast. So we get rid of these storms this evening. They move off the New Jersey coast, New York City, and then Delmarva gets another surge. What happens for Wednesday? Well, a nice day for most here from the eastern Ohio Valley, eastern Great Lakes. This is through 9 p.m. on Wednesday. But watch what starts to happen across Michigan here, southern Ontario. Start to get some convection firing here. And by 3 a.m. on Thursday morning, that convection moves towards Erie and Buffalo, just to the northeast of Cleveland here, and then moves across the Adirondacks and Lake Ontario region. So we may have a stray shower or thunderstorm make its way into upstate New York here, into parts of northern New England. And some of these could approach Binghamton, Elmira, Syracuse, Albany, these areas, Burlington. This is the last frame, 2 p.m. on July 3rd. Derek Grenschler from Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. It's been really stormy and tremendous rain. Thunderstorm moving in basically on June 30th, the last day of June. Look at that. Looking dark off in the distance here. You can see the streaks of rain coming in. Yeah, this looks really, really ominous. Look how green everything is, too. And also sending in his photo on Tuesday morning here, July 1st. Flooding going on across this region. Look at that. Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. Look at the creek here overflowing. It is just a tremendous amount of rain. You've had a lot of training thunderstorms across the area. And look at this. This is really crazy. That's a creek right there. And there it is, continuing to overflow the fields back here. Just looking really crazy. This is the kind of flooding you don't want to see. And unfortunately, more rain seems to be on the way. And severe thunderstorm warning with tornado possible with this thunderstorm warning on your evening of Tuesday, July 1st. Here, look at this. Wow, that is a classic looking, that looks like kind of like a shelf cloud moving in. That looks really ominous, really dark. Usually these contain a lot of winds as well, so you got to watch for these to potentially rotate, but also lots of winds. And of course, the heavy rain will be moving in with it behind it. Nice captures there, Derek, from Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. All right, so severe thunderstorms for your Wednesday. Marginal risk here across the Midwest and northern and central Great Lakes, so watch out for that. Damaging wind, large hail. Also the northern Rockies. And watch out for Thursday here. I know it's a small chance, but there may be some sort of mesoscale convective system dropping down from Canada here into parts of upstate New York, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and much of New England. All right, so let's pick up where our future radar left off here. As we progress on into your Thursday, into your Friday, all eyes are going to be on this system here off the southeast coast in Florida. Yeah, we're likely looking at the potential for a tropical storm or subtropical storm. But as we go through the weekend here, let's just back it up to the 4th. Here we go. This is the day that's going to give everybody, most people, a nice long weekend. So here we go. Heading on into the 4th, you can see some beautiful high pressure across much of the east, just anchored right over eastern Ohio, West Virginia, and western Pennsylvania. May see some stray showers kick into eastern parts of Michigan by later in the day. We'll watch out for that as a weak disturbance moves through. One thing to notice here, as far as we back this up onto the 3rd, mesoscale convective complexes look pretty weak here, coming out of Canada on the GFS, much more prominent onto the mesoscale models. Now, as we head throughout the rest of the weekend, you can see the high pressure just kick in across southern New England here, just off the coastline, and our next system moving up through the Midwest. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on our big system off the southeast coast, just chugging along very slowly, bringing in some very deep tropical moisture here into the Carolinas as we stretch on into early to middle part of next week. Yeah. By the 7th and 8th, this kind of gets entrained up into parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. We could be looking at some serious tropical moisture by this point into the 8th and into the 9th. So watch out for this. Things are going to get crazy. And, of course, the European model goes even more crazy with it, which I'll show you momentarily here. And then as we stretch through the 10th, the 11th, into the 12th, yeah, we're going to watch for another tail end of a front right here. So watch out. The East Coast, the water temperatures are crazy warm off the U.S. East Coast here. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on here. We may have the potential for another tropical system trying to develop ever so slightly just east of Florida here. And the rest of the country, look at this, looking nice and clear with the exception for the Midwest up here. And picking up where our future radar left off, let's get this into motion as we head towards Thursday. All eyes are going to be on 2 areas. This potential mesoscale convective complex dropping out of Canada for upstate New York, into New England here, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and our big potential tropical cyclone here off of the southeast coast through Florida. And as we continue to go through time here, you can see, yeah, that's a very fast-moving mesoscale convective system here into the northeast. Look how fast it's moving. Now, off the southeast coast, this is where we do start to see the low try to initialize right around the 4th of July. It's kind of bouncing around here off the east coast of Florida through Saturday. Look at this. So we could be looking at another tropical storm here, and it's going to be agonizingly slow-moving. Why is that? Well, we got this high pressure to the north. It's really socked in. This thing doesn't really have too much of an exit strategy. You do see it kind of just bounces along the North and South Carolina coast through next Tuesday, the 8th, into the 9th, into the 10th. It does try to come up towards the Outer Banks here and eventually Delmarva. So watch out. This is going to try to make a slow run, if you can call it that, up the coast. Look what happens right around Saturday, July 12th. This is where things the bottom kind of falls out with the pattern. It combines forces with a very strong low for this time of year. We have a couple areas of troughiness with it, and we're going to focus that tropical moisture moving northward. This could spell some serious trouble if this scenario plays out. And you see this moves up towards the northeast, so it's kind of resembling more of an inland low than a coastal low at this point. We'll keep an eye on it here. A lot can change between now and then. This low kind of bombs out around the St. Lawrence Valley on the 14th into the 15th before moving out with high pressure building back in. Now look what replaces it here. Yeah, you got big strong storms out here in Missouri, but look at this. This is the tail end of a frontal boundary. It looks like we may try to have another spin up come the middle of the month. And look at equivalent precipitation amounts here on the European model. Yeah, you can see where it's going to be the mid-Atlantic here, 1 to 2 inches. But watch Florida here and just off the Outer Banks. Yeah, this takes us through middle of next week. You can see most areas of Florida getting 2 to 4 inches here, even back through Texas here with another disturbance. But look at, as we head on through the middle part of the month, look at this surge of tropical moisture. A lot of this through Texas is from those hurricanes in the Pacific. Look at that. Lots of moisture, and we're going to see this run up the East Coast with whatever happens to this tropical system by this point, surging moisture with widespread 2 to 5 inch amounts here into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. All right, so we're taking a look at the GFS here for nationally. Yeah, this takes us all the way through July 13th. You can see, obviously, our big tropical system here. We'll be watching from the Eastern Gulf off the southeast coast. GFS bringing these totals closer to the coastline, these 4 to 8 inch totals of South Carolina and eastern North Carolina. So watch out, and then spreading up the coastline here towards the mid-Atlantic as we go in time. So yeah, we're going to have to watch this big, deep tropical moisture. And before we continue with more weather coverage, if you'd made it this far in the video, please smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. Subscribe, hit that bell notification button if you haven't already. Also, Hurricane 2025 Outlook, what I think is going to happen for the entire season. Link at the end of this video and a link in the description down below. Let's continue. In our upper air pattern for North America, yeah, it starts to look stormy. This is kind of deceiving, though. This is right around Thursday. So it's going to be out of here by 4th of July. Look at this. That's with that potential mesoscale convective complex dropping out of Canada. But look at that. Just in time for 4th of July weekend, we get this nice ridge across the east. If you're having a cookout, outdoor activities, it looks really beautiful for many areas. Now watch as we get towards the middle of the month. Yeah, we have whatever happens with our tropical system off the coast. It does try to make a run up here and combine forces with an area of low pressure. Thankfully, that does start to move out by the 16th. All right, so the NAO index is not really showing much blocking here, but the crazy thing about it over the next couple weeks, as I showed you, there is blocking going on. So it doesn't coordinate well with the NAO index being positive. And looking at the MJO index, kind of crazy too that most of the models, about 75% of them, are taking us into phase 3, 4, and 5, which is quieter. However, there are some now, about 25% of them, taking us to phase 7, 8, and 1, which would be much more active. Crazy thing about it, given the pattern, I'm almost siding with the minority amount of models here towards the more active pattern. So your Canadian weather forecast. So got some good news here. Rain where you really need it up here towards the Canadian wildfires. Yeah, look at this. As we head on to July 3rd and July 4th, this is actually some very decent rainfall. We'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily. Also, high pressure across Ontario that pushes the rain into Quebec here and New Brunswick as we head on into the 3rd and to the 4th. Look at this, though. This could be quite a storm system moving across southern Manitoba as we head on into the 4th, the early morning hours. Big system moving across parts of Ontario as well. So watch out, this system moving across parts of Western Ontario. Also another system through British Columbia here, bringing some showers to these wildfire-stricken areas. So that is some great news. Look at Southern Ontario and Quebec, though. Yeah, we're really getting socked in with these daily showers and thunderstorms. Heavy rains moving through Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City here, New Brunswick. And look at this. It's a very active, fast-moving pattern across Canada here. We have these Pacific systems kind of round up and around and then come down through eastern Canada like this as we head through the 8th into the 9th. Look at that. That is some severe weather action that could be ensuing across Saskatchewan through Manitoba here as this low pressure winds up in these wildfire-stricken areas. So that's some great news. Look at that heavy rain through Quebec. As we head through the 10th into the 11th, you get a squall line moving through eastern Quebec and New Brunswick. And then another low pressure cutting off here. So these lows will be very active. Look at this. This is some really good news. More heavy rains for the wildfire areas. So that's really going to put a dent. That is just winding up across Alberta here. That is some fantastic news. Look at that heavy rain. So there you have it. Some better news for Canada. Now, if we look into Canada here for our liquid equivalent precipitation, good news up here into northern Alberta where the wildfires, more rain is likely. Look at southeast Canada, though, as we head towards the middle of the month. Yeah, with the United States getting surges up the East Coast, also southern Ontario and Quebec are going to see 125 to 150 millimeters. Good news back in through parts of the northern Rockies here in prairie areas. Northern Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba could see upwards of 60 to 100 millimeters of rainfall. That's some beneficial rain. All right, so temperatures for the rest of the week, we're going to head right through your 4th of July long weekend. Many of you probably have a long weekend. Look at the 90s spreading across the plains here. Got some 80s for your Wednesday up here into the northeast. Lower humidity. Yeah, so that's going to be the name of the game up here into the lakes in the northeast Ohio Valley. Lots of nice 80s with much lower humidity. Heat continuing to build across the south, even out west here. Looking really toasty into your Friday, July 4th. Yeah, it continues to be really stellar here. If I can get my pencil to work there. There we go. Looking really nice across the area. And it's just looking amazing here. Most areas 70s northern New England, 80s much of the northeast, even the I-95 corridor. 90s down and through the Carolinas here. And stretching through the rest of the Midwest and the plains. Now watch this as we head on into the weekend, Saturday. Yeah, this surges 90s into Michigan and Ohio. So the party's over. We're going to start to bring into the upper 80s into the Northeast, 90s taking over pretty much all these areas into Sunday, July 6th. Look at this. We're well into the 90s. So the surging heat wave is back. And let's see, Monday, yeah, we're into the mid-90s along the I-95 corridor, pretty much along the entire East Coast. The extended forecast from our hometown viewers, being into Scranton, Susquehanna, River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. Wednesday is stellar if you actually have it off. Look at that, low to mid-80s. The humidity will be dropping into some nice sleeping weather Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Watch out Thursday afternoon and evening, though. We may have some sort of isolated mesoscale convective complex with some stronger cells coming out of Canada, dropping southward. So watch out, caution here, because, you know, we could see some stronger thunderstorms later on Thursday. Into 4th of July, looks beautiful, dropping down around that 78 to 82 degree range. Saturday, warming up into the mid-upper 80s. Sunday, sunny and hot into the low to mid-90s. And Monday, yeah, we'll get to that continued heat. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone, share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.